Here's the truth. For a lot of people, chord changes can take a good 6 to 12 months before they get to that point where they feel smooth. Not everybody has the advantage of starting guitar when they're really young and things click a lot more easily. My name's Aaron, and in this video I'm going to share with you a proven method that I use with my students to get them changing chords more quickly, easily, smoothly, concisely, etc. And at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you my bonus tip for those of you who have particularly stubborn fingers and you want to smoothen that out. So, without further ado, let's get zoomed in. If you haven't got my free beginner guitar survival kit yet, you can download that from a link in the description. Then let me show you how you're going to conquer this very standard chord progression. The chord progression is G, E minor, C, and D. Okay? Firstly, whenever doing any kind of chord changes, make sure that you're only going between 2 chords at a time. Don't try to do 3 or 4 at a time. You need to focus on one specific problem area. You need to be really pinpoint about how you spend your practice time. You're going to start with 2-minute chord changes. And of course, we're going to start with the first 2 chords of our sequence, which is G and E minor. G to E minor. What we do is we set a timer for 2 minutes. So I've got my phone here in front of me. Set a 2-minute timer. Okay. And here's the crucial bit. In a relaxed fashion, concentrating on quality, not quantity, we're going to change between G and E minor until our timer goes off. And we're going to do this together. So our timer starts in 3, 2, 1, go. Holding that G chord. And you want to make sure that you've got a nice clean G chord before you go to the E minor. And by the way, if you're finding it difficult to keep up with the speed that I'm doing, don't worry, that's completely normal. It takes time to build up the muscle memory. But we're going gently between G, we're checking all of the strings, making sure we've got clear notes, because there's a good chance that you might well be getting this. You know? And at that point, you've got to check in with your fretting hand and go, what do I need to do to get more onto the tips of the fingers? Do I need to get my wrist into this relaxed, healthy drop position? Okay, if your wrist is clenched up like that, it's going to be more difficult. Do I need to bring my wrist forward, or is it too far forward and I need to gently bring it back? Okay, so these are all things that you want to be checking while you're doing your 2-minute chord changes. Like I said before, it's about quality, not quantity. Just slow, mindful progress, becoming aware of what your body is actually doing. Another crucial component of this as well is learning to breathe. So many people, when they get anxious, their breathing goes, okay? So if you're one of those people, like, you know, I can be like this sometimes too, and tensing up and it gets more difficult, just take a breath. And you're just playing these nice, relaxing chords. There's no competition, there's no rush, just slow, mindful progress will get you to your goal. So we've got 12 seconds to go, 10 seconds to go, and we're just changing between these chords still. All right. And now our timer has gone off, so of course we switch our timer off. Just remember that it's okay to fumble. Your goal with this exercise is slow, mindful progress. Now, once we've done our 2-minute changes, we follow that up with 1-minute chord changes. And the difference here is that you're trying to get as many chord changes as you can in the space of a minute. So this is a very different exercise. It's going to feel very different. It's going to sound very different. After practicing the slow changes, speeding up helps lock in the muscle memory a bit more, and it might feel clumsy at first, but that is part of the process. It's not about perfection, just building up consistency, okay? So let's set the timer to 1 minute here. And in 3, 2, 1, go. Starting with our G, and you're going to do as many as you can. Now, I'm not going to play. I'm just going to kind of talk to you while you do these changes. And G, E minor, by the way, that constitutes one change. G, E minor, that constitutes a second change. G, E minor. And you just keep going like that, okay? So again, if you fumble and things aren't sounding quite right, don't worry, that's perfectly normal. We're just trying to get a solid amount of changes just to give us a benchmark and to contrast this with the 2 minutes of quality and now the 1 minute of quantity. And eventually all of this is going to become automatic. It's all going to become easy. It'll be flowing. It just takes time. And now our timer. That was 1 minute there. So let me know in the comments how many chord changes you did. I want to hear from you. I would say that if you can do 40 of those per minute, and don't worry, by the way, if you're nowhere near that, it does take time, but if you can do 40 a minute, that is about what you're aiming for in terms of a smooth change that might slot well into a song, okay? And just remember, every clean change is progress, so keep practicing and it will come together. Another method which is extremely helpful is using a metronome. Google literally has a metronome built in, okay? If you type in Google metronome, you're going to get this coming up, okay? If you type that into your phone, this is what's going to come up. And you can see the little plus arrow, the little minus arrow there. So that enables you to adjust the beats per minute. And I think on a desktop computer, you can just click on the number there and type in a new number. We're going to start at 50 beats per minute. That's 50 clicks in the space of a minute, all right? And I'm going to exemplify to you now how we would use this to get better at chord changes. So we start our metronome. And we always want to be thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we do our first chord on 1, 2, 3, 4. And our next chord on 1 again, 2, 3, 4. Back to our first chord on 1. And you're beginning to see how this works, right? Now, when you start learning chords, it's going to sound like this. And then your fingers are going to fumble. And then you're going to get your next chord and your fingers are going to fumble again. And then you're going to get the first chord and your fingers are going to fumble again. And it's just a case of repeating that process over and over, okay? So it's going to sound like this. I'm just trying to emulate what I see beginners do with their fingers. Okay, so you kind of get how this works now. And the more you practice this exercise, the smaller that gap will become. As in the gap, the space between the chords, the silence between the chords. Well, you'll be able to do it slightly longer. And there'll only be a smaller gap. And then... And when you're happy that that gap has become sufficiently smaller, what you do is you plug the metronome up by 5 beats per minute. So we go up to 55 beats per minute now and do the same thing. 2, 3, 4. It's a little bit quicker. G, 2, 3, 4. E minor. 2, 3, 4. And G. 2, 3, 4, and E minor, 2, 3, 4. And that is the way that you can use the metronome to help you with your chord changes. So as you can see, we're coming at the same problem just from multiple different angles. Different things can work for different people. Some people might latch on better to the 1 minute changes, the 2 minute changes, or the metronome. But ideally, you want to try and integrate all of these at some point because they're all going to have advantages for your playing. And again, if things aren't sounding the way you'd like, just remember that it takes a long time to do this, especially if you're older, okay? Remember also that as an adult, you're so much more aware of how you sound than you might be if you're a child. And that's okay. A child who learns the guitar at age 9 or 10 might not necessarily be too bothered that their chord is kind of clunky, because they're just not bothered. They just power through it and they get on with it, you know? And then eventually they reach the other side, and it hasn't really been a conscious thing. It's just been the fact that they've continued to learn. And we need to do that. We need to get in touch with that inner child, I think. Now, for those of you struggling with stubborn fingers, here's that bonus tip I promised to help fine-tune your individual chords. These are called finger push-ups. So you pick a single chord that you struggle with, let's say struggling with this G chord here. You place your fingers down as normal, and then you move your fingers just a really small distance away. I'm talking literally millimeters, all the fingers together, millimeters away. And then you place them back down. Can you see that? I'm just moving them off just a little bit and then placing them back down. Now, I might do that for a week or two or whatever I'm comfortable with, but I might do it in one session. It really depends on the person. But once we can do that from a millimeter away, let's try doing it from a centimeter away and then back down, or a couple of centimeters away, you know, and back down. And then say 4 or 5 centimeters away and back down. Okay, if you really want to, you can actually get a ruler out and measure, although that might be a little bit drastic, but you could. Okay, you could, just to kind of track your progress maybe, and just, if you're not too familiar with distances, I guess, and millimeters and centimeters and things like that, it might be helpful. Anyway, and then eventually we want to be able to bring the hand all the way off and then all the way back on. All the way off, all the way back on. And we want to be able to get that quicker and quicker. And over time, that's going to translate into a much smoother, better, well-formed chord. If you made it this far, you're already putting in the hard work clearly, so stick with it, and soon those chord changes will feel like second nature. Remember to download your free beginner guitar survival kit from the link in the description, and let me know in the comments which chord has given you the most trouble. And as always, keep on strumming.